They're exploring. Everyone is launching an exploratory committee. Okay, so they are exploring the possibilities of potentially running for president of the United States. So they're seeing, can I raise enough money? Can I move enough people? Can I get enough votes? You know, can I build a team? You know, they're thinking about these things, and they're also building their narrative. They're shaping their narrative. So in the beginning parts of the campaign, one thing that is really important is you have to build your narrative. You have to, what is your stump speech? Who are you? Why are you someone that I should vote for and trust with my civil to trust to serve me? You know, what a campaign and a candidate is doing is a really, really, really long, hard, and very expensive job interview.
This week's episode I have on Ericka Claudio, and it was a really good conversation. It was a really long conversation. We spoke for about 3 hours, like 2 hours and like 54 minutes. So it was a lot. We covered a lot of ground, but I thought that it would be better to condense it I don't know, I just thought 3 hours was a lot, and I could be overthinking it, but whatever, we're here now. I got it down to 1 hour and 30 minutes, and we talked about everything from her experience, how she got into being a political advocate, how she deals with, boundaries, a lot of things with her personal growth experience, her time working with Bernie Sanders, her time working with Stacey Abrams, and a bunch of just middle ground in regards to, how we can interact with each other, how we can digest and understand what's going on in this political climate with the news cycles that we're receiving, how we can be, better informed and help better reform what's going on around us, because there's a lot of things that, I don't know, when I was growing up, I had like Schoolhouse Rock. My mom constantly made me watch Schoolhouse Rock to get familiar with, history and political events and a bunch of stuff. But I don't think we have a lot of that now. And on top of everything just getting us as angry as it's getting us, I think anything is even more frustrating when you don't understand it. So I think Ericka literally stands in the middle between politics and culture in that way that helps a lot of things be able to be translated in the most layman's of terms so we can understand it and then have a better feeling about what's going on around us. And I think in that way we'll be better informed and better equipped to even manage our emotions. We won't get so mad about certain things that could sound like it's bad, but it may actually be helpful. And I think that's very important and very necessary in this climate. So it was good to sit down and chop it up with her as someone who, like I said, is young, like myself. And I consider a peer. I consider very well-spoken, very knowledgeable, very caring. She definitely cares a lot about the work that she does, and I think that's also a very important part, because you don't want to get attached to someone and then they just feel like, oh, I'm not going to do this anymore. You know what I mean? It takes people who, even if they do take a break, they're going to come back to it, they're going to get back to it and deliver that same vigor in delivering information that we need, because politics isn't going away, presidential candidates aren't going away, races aren't going away. This is stuff that we're constantly going to need to be informed about over and over again. So again, I'm looking forward to sharing the episodes with you guys. Shout out to Kayla for connecting us. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, let's get into the episode. All right, so new episode of One Could Argue, and I have Ericka Claudio. I call you Young Claudio.
That's what's up.
So we're gonna run with that. I have Young Claudio on here.
That's a new one.
It is?
It is.
Really?
Usually people call me Claudio or E-Money. Those have been my
E-Money, is that like a childhood?
No,
like
that's
a long
like
time
adulthood.
friend name,
I'm a little gangster with it,
Lord.
A lot of people that I've worked with before just start calling me E-Money, and then some friends of mine just call me E-Money. I don't know. But then, childhood really is Claudio. Claudio's like more of a childhood.
What made Claudio stick instead of Ericka? Was it just like that interesting of a last name?
I think so. And then like a lot of people call my dad Claudio, like in my family, and like I look like my dad a lot, look just like him actually. So they just started calling me little like Claudio, and then people in church started calling me. It just picked up, and then it became a thing. And then also my Instagram name is Claudio, and a lot of people.
That's the thing. That's why I thought it was your first name. I was like, oh, this is a cool name. And then when I actually looked at your Instagram, I was like, yeah, Ericka's definitely not a last name. So her first name is probably Ericka. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I just started calling you Ericka when I talked to you on the phone the other day. I was like, let me try to call her Ericka.
No, you can call me Young Claudio. I actually feel very empowered by that. I appreciate that. We can keep that energy.
All right, cool. So I'm excited to have you on here today. We've had a few ideas about just conversations and how to just get into this thing, because I found out about you through Kayla. And she was telling me about, your work and how you've, at that time, were in the middle of the Stacey Abrams campaign. And I think before then you were working with Bernie Sanders on his campaign. And I was like, oh, wow, like this is one of those, I find myself now, and me and Roop talk about this all the time, like when you look at the people who are moving and shifting culture that are at the forefront, and where I feel like now we're seeing the people who are going to be stepping into those roles over the next 5 or 10 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, these are becoming my peers. These are the people that we're ushering into the space. You know what I mean? So I was like, okay, this is dope. Like, I definitely want to, at that time, simply because of everything that was going on with Stacey, I was like, oh, this would be a great opportunity to have you on here to discuss it. And then just the experience that I'm sure came with everything else.
Oh, gosh.
So with that, I really just wanted to start with, in regards of you getting into the political space, was that something that was started because you just admired it, or was it something that you experienced that made you be like, oh, this is what it feels like to be oppressed or deal with a certain situation, this is the solution to it?
It's a little bit of both. It's probably more the latter than the first. But I will say that I did grow up pretty marginalized, and as I navigated my experiences, I just would always wonder, like, what can be done to make sure that no one else has to go through something like this,
right?
And mainly it's like, poverty and like, abuse and like, lack of economic opportunity, like my brother for a majority of my life behind bars, so like just being exposed to like all these different, injustices very early on in life, and just really wondering, like, is this life? But it wasn't until I moved down to Georgia that I actually realized that life was different. When I was growing up in Brooklyn, everyone was pretty much in the same position that I was in. That was in my neighborhood, in my community. So I didn't know anything else. So all I knew was struggle and hustle and grind. That was all I ever knew. And pain, And when I moved to Georgia, I realized that people have both parents. That's a thing. I realized that it was like white people was a thing, that Caucasian, because in New York we use the word Caucasian, so white people is a thing, and like people are actually like American white people, because in New York it's usually like you're Jewish or you're Bosnian or you're Russian. It's very, in my neighborhood in Bed-Stuy, you don't meet a lot of white people back then. It wasn't like, so I didn't really interact with, I didn't go to school with white kids, I didn't have white teachers, and I didn't have white people in my community. It's very different now. So anyway, so I set out to say, you get all these different exposure, so like that was a culture shock. So when I moved to Georgia, it was like, there's more. Right. And that was the admiration. That was the, well, if there's more, I want to go get that. Yeah. So then I just began seeking that. But honestly, it wasn't until I went to college, and Obama won his re-election bid in 2012, my freshman year, and he did it. And he did it with so much like grace and like integrity, and I wasn't old enough to appreciate the 2008 win, even though I knew it was a historic win. I still didn't see myself as someone who could do something like that. Right. But when he did it the second time, I was like, oh, this is really possible. So I changed my major from education to political science, and I began to go on that path, and I began to organize and like ask questions and enforce and hustle and finesse, and eventually I found my way.
That's interesting, because it's interesting how those small changes can open up your just vision and your experience. Because I remember even when I moved down here, I moved down to Georgia in 2006. And it was at that time, it was when, I don't know, I feel like everybody had a cousin that moved down, and then they sent word back like, oh, like everything's cheaper down here. And it was just like, oh man, so we moved down here. And the same way, I went to school, because my mother put me in private schools coming up until I got put out of them. But so I wasn't totally in as much of a culture shock as to experiencing white people. But when I got down here, just the aspect of Southern hospitality and how friendly people were down here.
For like genuinely.
Yeah, genuinely. And it was like, wait. Yeah, like what? Like why are you so right? 100%. And it was a lesson for me because I had to learn. I feel like a lot of people who move down from New York have to learn not to be so like mean and rude because it's like. It really put it in perspective how rude we can be from
I don't think
top,
we're rude. I think we're hustlers and we're focused and we just don't have time for bullshit. Because sometimes with our hospitality comes a lot of bullshit and a lot of like, cushion that doesn't really need to be there.
That's an interesting perspective.
It's just like, I don't need that extra, from you. It's like, I'm having a good day. You're having a good day. Okay, great. See you later. Like,
that's an interesting
you get
perspective.
held up for 10 minutes entertaining conversation from somebody who's trying to be hospitable. But if you're on schedule and you're focused, like most people in New York, the New York minute is a real thing. It's like your 1 minute, you can throw your whole day off. So that you don't got time to entertain.
That's an interesting perspective. I still think for me, it helped me at least take some of the edge off.
Okay.
Because I think sometimes if you're from New York, like it can come off so edgy.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, you're just rude as hell.
Yeah.
But to that point, to what you just said, that does make a lot of sense. And I can 100% agree with that because there are still people who are super pleasant in that split second of meeting them. And then they're still on their way. And those are the people that at this time, I admire and study because it's the science. It takes
because it's a special way. You got to move that way. You got to learn how to move that way. I think it's something that everybody is always trying to figure out. I don't think anyone does it all the time, every time. But I think it's like a habit that a lot of successful people maybe develop. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do I know?
So, question, because I saw the piece that you released last night in regards to... It was about a few different things. It was about Martin Luther King. It was also about religion's part in, or church's part in political...
Progressive spaces.
Right, progressive spaces.
Yeah.
So my thing with you, because it was an interesting take in regards of how you identify as a Christian woman in this space.
1000%.
But at the same time, you were making the point of how it's important for churches to open themselves up to more topics if they want to be as inclusive and have the what they claim or what they want to be the more positive effect on people and in the space just in general.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things with politics for America to be as church driven or religious driven of a country. It's always been on the exact other side of it, the most judgmental, just taking control of how women use their bodies, all of that. So I'm wondering, in regards of you being a Christian woman in this space, did the political aspect change how you viewed your Christian experience, or did your Christian experience change how you viewed the political side?
I'm a Christian first.
Okay.
God comes first. So the latter. But it's hard not to be tested in your faith in the progressive space because most people in the progressive space are atheists or just not believers in general. Because a lot of our opposition are white evangelical Christians who preach this message that is not, in my opinion, accurate, an accurate depiction of what Christianity is supposed to be. But because that is the dominating force behind Christianity, is like this white evangelical movement. It's often like, the soul of Christianity is usually hidden in the shadow of that. So I feel very privileged actually to be able to have a light and a space. But being a Christian helps me inform my work because it helps me to be kinder, more compassionate, less judgmental, humble, reliant on God always, because government will never work on my behalf the way God will work on my behalf. And it helped me to be a better light, a better activist. My faith empowers me to be a better activist because I can operate from a space of love and acceptance. And that's honestly all people want. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, white, black, Nazi, or Black Lives Matter, people just want to feel loved and accepted at the end of the day. And if you lead with that, you can go so much further than leading with anything else. So to answer your question, that is by far probably, my faith is always constantly informing my worth because God is using me. I am a vessel in this space. I am not here for myself. I'm not here for anyone else. I'm here to like serve and to be of service. And that's like, and sometimes it's easy to get tripped up in your ego, especially when you have so much access to power and information. So it's hard to balance that sometimes. But it humbles me. God always humbles me in a way that keeps me grounded. My faith keeps me grounded. Because sometimes you get in the political space and you get those relationships and you get those connections. You can literally have access to whatever. And that can be pretty dangerous for people who are not rooted in something like that has substance. Mm-hmm. So I'm grateful to be able to have substance and contribute light into a space that has no light. So, yeah.
So with that being said, in regards to the conversation again you was having on there, it was just like, how do we move forward in creating a better space?
I think it's just going to require a sense of boldness mm-hmm. and a sense of humility. Mm-hmm. We all would have to humble ourselves to be able to hear each other.
Right.
Like I would have to be able to hear you, right?
Right.
And like you would have to be able to hear me. And we would have to really take away all the barriers that would exist between that and really just see each other as human beings, that have life experiences that shape their perspectives to get them to be and think where they are. Mm-hmm. Because no one grows up deciding who they're going to become in the beginning. When you're a child and you're in adolescence, you're not consciously making decisions. You're just living. And then when you become an adult, that's when you start making more choices out of like discipline and like intent and like purpose, because that's like you got to pay bills and you got to get a job, you got to figure things out. So you go from this transition of like, being like a child to becoming an adult. And I feel like when we become an adult, life kind of ruins the innocence and the purity of like life and being able to like, I don't know, children just have this way of just being so innocent and like open and happy all the time. Mm-hmm. And it's like if we as adults allowed ourselves the space to be more childlike in the sense of being free and like open-minded right. and like not judgmental, that would probably be a start, because it would take, when you become an adult, you have all those life experiences that from up until that time you got there that shape your perspective. But if we go back and we erase all that and we just start fresh, I think that some productive conversations and opportunities can be presented because it's a clean slate. Mm-hmm. There's something that happened in my life that made me as rooted in my faith as I am. Mm-hmm. There's something that happened in your life that made you as rooted in your beliefs as you are. You know what I'm saying? We all have things that shape us, but we don't have to denounce those things. We can just put them aside for a second so that we can be an ally to mm-hmm. someone who may disagree with us about something. Because I think one of the issues about what's happening right now is that everything is so polarized and you can't be moderate about anything. You have to be either all the way on the left or all the way on the right, or there's no space for you. And I think that in some ways that's, necessary, right? In certain things, we just have to stop compromising on, right? But on other things, it's like people should still be allowed to have a sense of individualism. And I feel like we have this toxic, culture that we are creating in society where you can't be an individual anymore. You have to agree with everyone and everyone has to agree with you. And if that isn't not the case, it's chaos and it's polarizing and it's Democrats versus Republican. It's Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton. And it's this ugly mess that no one ever really wants to deal with. So that's kind of where I am with that. I just wish that people were more bold and more humble, because I think the wiser you are, the more you realize you know nothing. Mm-hmm. And I think that requires a sense of humility that a lot of people just probably don't have.
Right. So what was the first time you experienced that in the political space? What was your first run or just working with anyone that was like, oh, like, I'm experiencing this challenge or observing someone interact with this, someone who disagrees, you know what I mean? Or just an extreme experience that was like, oh, wow, like I'm really doing this, but it's also like give you an opportunity to study and see what's the right way to deal with it or what's the wrong way to deal with it.
I think one of the first things was working on the Bernie Sanders campaign. I learned a lot on that campaign. Mm-hmm. I traveled to 7 or 8 or 10, I don't know, states campaigning for him in the primary. And you meet different people from all kind of walks of life and backgrounds, different parts of the country, different historical contexts, and, cultural context. So I quickly learned that in organizing and advocating for votes for him, that everyone's different. And just because someone's Democrat doesn't mean that they're going to be allied with you in a way that you'd like for them to be. Or just because someone's Republican doesn't mean that they're against you.
Right.
So that I learned that on that campaign. But I think more importantly, I learned about like people on that campaign because I met so many people at the bottom and at the top. And one thing that everyone had in common is that, but that I didn't, that was, you know, new for me to understand is that everyone was curious. Everyone had a sense of curiosity,
right.
You know, and for me, that meant that I had an opportunity to move them and engage them and plant a seed. You know, that curiosity was an opportunity for me to plant a seed. So I learned that on that campaign. And in that moment, I learned that a lot. At that time, I was 22. So I wasn't as mature enough. I wasn't very mature in my own self to know where I stood and what my curiosity was and like what my senses were. So that was a pretty interesting contrast for me to be in a space of self-discovery and be amongst so many people who had already found their way was really intimidating, but also quite interesting.
Was there anything along that journey that was shocking in regards of you gaining perspective into someone else's experience of life in the country? Was it like, wow, like people really out here believe this, or people are really misinformed? Was there any experience that was like, we really need to be taught what's going on?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes. I'm a very passionate person. I care about issues. I care about people. I care about community. So I walked into rooms thinking everybody thought the same way that I thought. And that was so wrong. And I would go into communities just asking people, are you going to go vote? And they're like, what am I voting for? You know, and it wouldn't just be the presidential. It would be like mayoral campaigns and congressional campaigns that were overlapping and Senate campaigns that were overlapping and state legislative campaigns and local campaigns that weren't overlapping. And like, yo, like your life is on the ballot. Do you realize you are a black person living in Baltimore, Maryland? Your freedom is on the ballot. You know, why don't you know that there's an election?
Right.
And why don't you care that there's an election? You know, and that for me was just like, as a culture, I realized that we are so disconnected from the space, and we're so disconnected from power and leverage and opportunity. I realized that on the campaign trail, because almost you got a little bit of everybody, but for the most part I organized in like, you know, predominantly black areas, poor areas. And a lot of those folks that I came in touch with, they had too much real shit going on. They were too busy surviving that they didn't have the luxury of being informed. So then it created this passion in me to want to develop a way in a space within the culture to inform us, because it wasn't that the information wasn't there. It wasn't that we were not the target audience. So no one was catering to our demographic. No one is catering to the black community to inform them and give them information and skills and resources to really make them feel empowered in the political space. You got amazing organizations like the Collective PAC that is building black political power on the electoral front, but on the cultural front, the societal entertainment front, there's not much happening there. No one knows anything. Literally, no one knows anything, and that for me is a problem. So I began to share everything on my Instagram, on my Facebook, on my Snapchat at the time. Every day, every minute of my day, hey guys, this is what this means. This is what this is. And I just passionately began to share because I realized that I was lucky to be in the room, that the room, I was not invited, that I was assigned. And it was my responsibility. I took on that responsibility of wanting to articulate information back to my community and report back to my community what was going on in a way that made them feel, you know, empowered with information and also help them to digest it You know, because a lot of times it's like, I don't know what the fuck that means. I mean, what the fuck is Congress? What is representative? So I'm finding creative ways in language to use to educate and inform. So that was like a pivotal moment for me, honestly, because that's when I found like my juice. You know, I didn't know it then. You know, I didn't know it at all. But like that was my magic. My magic is talking about things and helping people understand things in a way that, you know, it's just not being explained right now. You know, so yeah.
Yeah, and to that point, that's something we were talking about the other day when we were on the phone. That's one of the things that once I was put onto you and started getting into like your Instagram stories and just receiving that information, it was like, okay, this is to your point. It was being expressed in a way that I could understand it, because you grow up and you do hear about the 3 different branches and all of this other stuff, but as you continue to grow and everything becomes so demonized, not for no reason, but you start to not care about it and you bury it away.
Yeah, because it's no longer relevant to your experiences.
Right.
Especially as a black person or a marginalized person in this world, that is the least of your concerns.
Right.
Like with the breaking news. You are the breaking news.
Right.
Because it's likely someone that is in your family or community that is at the forefront and that is being directly impacted by these issues. So you're too busy trying to get above water. You can't even see. And that's usually the case.
Yeah.
But we can do it through our music. We can do it through the content that we create. We can do it through the conversations we're having at Thanksgiving and dinner. We can do it through the way that the books that we're giving our children. You know, there are ways to do it in a way that doesn't have to feel like you have to go get a college degree to be a part of these conversations.
100%.
You know?
100%. And I think to that point, that was what I was thinking, because you do it for so long and you become so detached from it. And now that everything, because of what's going on, is being pushed more to the forefront, it's almost like you're scared because you don't know anything.
Yeah.
And then you immerse yourself in CNN and Fox, and you're at such the surface level of it. I still don't understand how it got here.
Overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's like,
100%.
how did Donald Trump even win?
Yeah.
What is the Electoral College and why does it even exist?
Right.
Didn't Hillary Clinton get more votes? I'm never voting again.
Right.
This is stupid. Yep. How did Stacey Abrams lose the election? You know, like, these are the questions that the people deserve to know. And these stories and this content needs to be created. Yeah. You know, because, like, to your point, our people are drowning. And we're not drowning, we're dying. We're maternal mortality. Black women are dying 3 times the rate than white women are dying during childbirth. We're being thrown in jails. We're being deported back to countries that we have no home ties to. You know, we're being denied food stamps and government assistance. You know, we're lacking transit and economic access and opportunity, and college education is becoming more and more increasingly unaffordable. So, and the list goes on, you know, but it's like we're drowning, and like, unless we get something going, unless a culture, like a moment happens, we're going to drown. Right. You know, as a culture. But no one is provoking these conversations. We should all be demanding a seat at the table, even with our enemies, because we need to be right here with our enemies so we can know what the fuck they're doing. You know, like, if we are not talking to our enemies, how are we gonna? Even in war, you send spies to better inform your work. And it's like, there's a way to do it that's balanced. Dr. King did it very well. That does not isolate anyone. You know, Dr. King didn't isolate white people. If white folks wanted to join his marches, Republicans wanted to join his march, Democrats, whoever wanted to join his marches, they could join. It wasn't like a you can't sit with us kind of vibe. And I feel like as a culture, we have this you can't sit with us kind of vibe going on right now, because we're so like buried in the survival tactics of it all, that anything that's like not related to the grind, the survival, the whatever, the gram, the flex of it all, is just not interesting. So I know that's a mouthful. Nah, but I hear you. That's just kind of where I am with it. And I think we just need to be pushing that envelope. We need to stop being afraid to push the envelope. Stop being afraid to look stupid and ask a stupid question. There's no such thing. You know, stop being afraid to, you know, switch up our priorities. Go to the town hall meeting. Right. Pick up the phone and call your legislator and educate yourself, because it's honestly no one's responsibility to educate anyone. You are empowered to educate yourself. But we're not inspired or motivated to do these things because we don't know how it can serve us. So then that creates it goes back to my first point of like, no one is leading the effort. You know, my mom had champions in the community leaders investing in their community, taking care. But right now, when I look around and I go to these different communities across the country, I didn't find many, you know? So when you're so quick to call somebody's children badass child, back in the day, I feel like somebody would take someone else's child and help raise that child, and versus saying such and such nappy head little girl need to get her attitude together. Like, I feel like, our generation ahead of us would have said, come here, baby, let me talk to you for a second. What's going on? And I just feel like our priorities are pretty fucked up right now.
In between your time working with Bernie Sanders to your time working with Stacey.
Complete difference.
Okay. And what was that? Because
Stacey's black. Because and she's not just black. She happens to be black. She's excellent. Let me say that over. Let me redo that. Stacey is excellent. Okay. She just so happens to be black. She is magical. I think partially because of the culture that she was brought up in. But it was different because Stacey's a leader. No shade to Bernie, but she could identify with experiencing marginalization. And she had successfully navigated that. So people saw themselves in her. I saw myself in her. So it was a complete different environment just in the beginning, because you are in alignment with your people, and that's working in a space that is opposite of that. It's always going to be different, because I can't go to these doors and ask these. It's different going to, Chicago, for example, Southside Chicago. It's different going down to Southside Chicago and knocking on a door of someone and asking them to vote for Bernie Sanders, and then going down to the west end of Atlanta and asking for someone to vote for Stacey Abrams. That's like, what? Yeah. You got a lot more work to do when you're working on the behalf of Bernie Sanders. You got to prove he's a white man. At the end of the day, we got some trust issues with your kind. What have you done for me, and why? I just heard about you. I know about Hillary for forever. Why should I vote for you? That was like the conversations that I was having when I was on the campaign trail at that time. Right. So, but Stacey was like, they didn't even need to know anything about her. She was a sister. She was from, the South. She was about that life. But then when they did learn about her, it was like, if I'm going to vote for anybody, I'm definitely going to vote for Stacey. Yeah. So, that was a shift. And I think that the thing that needs to be noted in that is that representation matters. And we have to be able to see ourselves in spaces in order to feel attached to these spaces, and to be invested in these spaces. And when that doesn't happen, there's that disconnect is created.
Yeah. Do you think did you see any difference in the people's level of being informed between the time in the two spaces?
Yes, because you had a heightened society. You had a heightened news out, what is the word I'm looking for? A heightened news cycle. Everything was it's so ridiculous these days. It's like every time I look at my phone and a CNN update comes, I'm like, that's happening? What? So yeah, people at the time when Stacey was running, people genuinely did want to resist Donald Trump and really wanted to find a savior. Who's going to save us from the Trump administration? So even beyond candidates of Stacey, like other dynamic candidates, all the hundreds of women across the country who ran for office and went on to Congress, and people who were elected locally, that happened as a reaction to what was happening in 2017, 2018 under the Trump administration. In 2016, people were very comfortable because our president was black. We felt like we didn't have to pay attention. Then got it. Yeah. And then when that wasn't the case, it was like a sense of panic. And then comes in Stacey Abrams, then comes in Lucy Macbeth, then comes in Ayanna Pressley, and all these, Kamala Harris. She won back in 2016. So like you have all these people who are gaining these platforms and speaking and being black and being black on the ballot and being unapologetically progressive and standing in their truth, because they realized the contrast was necessary. They had to create a space that people could see themselves in. And that's what Stacey did. That's what many people did during the election, and not just on the political side. That's what Jay-Z did with 444. You know what I'm saying? That's what Beyonce did with Lemonade. Like, it was like this form of expression. Like, let me express and help you to see yourself in my pain, help you to see yourself in my life experiences and lessons, so that you can now become empowered. But the key there is exposure and like representation, because then that leads to access, and then access leads to success, and then success leads to generational empowerment. And I think that's kind of what we should be striving for.
So to something you were saying in regards of, I was watching some interviews, some with Cory Booker and some with Kamala. And one of the questions that everyone was interested in is, you know, what is your plan for the Black community? But on the flip side of it, and this is something I've experienced as well, just observing the campaigns, it seems as like, and I don't know, from your experience in working with the people and seeing how they feel about things, I'm not sure, or I'm curious how much of them being Black had to do with people's choices to vote for them. Because I'll be honest, ever since the announcement of their votes, me personally, I do feel like there has been a effort put forth for them to resonate with us as Black people for everything outside of the political space. I started seeing a whole bunch of interviews about, you know, what they're listening to and stuff like that. And it's like, that's important 100%. But I know you're Black. I can see you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not that pressed about understanding if you go to the barbershop and you grew up. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't really care that much about it. I'm more concerned about what you're going to do for us. You know what I mean? And like I said, I'm not sure that I've been getting, for me, it's felt like it's too much concerned about proving that part when that's not what I'm here for. So I'm not sure if from your time working in the field, if you've felt like in the field, in the space around people. But I don't know, like, has that been a determining factor?
Very early. They're exploring. Everyone is launched an exploratory committee. Okay, so they are exploring the possibilities of potentially running for president of the United States. So they're seeing, can I raise enough money? Can I move enough people? Can I get enough votes? You know, can I build a team? You know, they're thinking about these things, and they're also building their narrative. They're shaping their narrative. So in the beginning parts of the campaign, one thing that is really important is you have to build your narrative. You have to, what is your stump speech? Who are you? Why are you someone that I should vote for and trust with my civil to trust to serve me? You know, you are, what a campaign and a candidate is doing is a really, really, really long, hard, and very expensive job interview. They're interviewing for a role to serve a community. The community on election day gets to decide whether or not they get the job, you know? So in an interview, one of the first questions that you're asked is, who are you? Tell me about yourself. So that's really what these candidates are doing. They're just telling us about themselves. And the reason why you're seeing these, you know, Black cultural, you know, stories is because they are Black. So that is truly their identity, you know, and that's going to be a very important part of their story. Now, it's not going to be the only part of their story, but when you're doing a campaign, you can't give everybody too much at once because they're not going to receive it. You have to build layers. You have to, it's consistent layering on everything, on comms, on finance, on field, on digital, and all. You're constantly layering over your story over and over, telling it over and over and over again until it sticks. And then people feel like you're their cousin, you're their homie, you're their best friend. So that way people will be willing to vote, donate, volunteer for you. But in order for people to go out and do favors for you, like volunteer or donate or vote for you, they got to feel like they know you. They got to feel like they can trust you. So that's what you see a lot of the candidates doing right now, is trying to build that rapport of trust within not just the Black community, but the American population and the voting demographic in general. So that provides some perspective as to why these conversations are being had this way, because they're exploring messaging, they're testing messaging. What words work? When I send an email with these words, does that get more traffic and more responses than an email with these words? When I talk like this on an interview, what are the responses I'm getting versus when I talk like this? It's all planned. None of it is coincidence. It is all very strategic and intentional, and they're really trying to develop a platform and see if they can even develop a platform. Some of them are not even going to make it that far. Some of them will make it past the summer.
So so here's one of my things in seeing how everything's progressed with having social media. It seems like, to your point, I feel like maybe 30 years ago, 40 years ago, all of that wouldn't even necessarily need to be a discussion that's been had for someone like me who's just the everyday person.
Right.
So now it just seems like, because we have access to so much, not only are we on the receiving end of the message, but we're involved in the analytics, because we're all involved in analytics every day when it comes to Instagram and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if we need to be, whether it's retaught or just taught, how we need to experience this entire thing. Because like I say, I can look at emails from even during Stacey's campaign, you know what I mean? I got so many emails.
Got a lot, right?
And it was, as I was looking at them or reading through them, not only am I receiving the information, but I'm like, oh, she's doing this now, or she's doing this now. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure if that sort of ruins the experience, or if it makes us pay attention to too much of the wrong thing, or if we just don't know how to receive it yet. You know what I mean?
I think you have to filter it, because campaigns and people, organizations, generally businesses, everyone sends emails. Comcast sends me a couple emails unwanted, like a week. I don't care about what shows y'all got, specials y'all got.
Right.
Everyone says oversaturated information, like you said. And we just have to become filtered. Filter through it, and like allow ourselves the time to process. Because there's so much information, it's like no time to process it. It's like 1 minute it's this, the next minute it's that, and we never have a chance to see, like, how do I feel about this? How does it sit with me?
Right.
So I think creating a space to think and think critically is important. And because we live in such a fast-paced society now, everything's at our fingertips, we don't have patience. So I think maybe exercising patience with yourself, to give yourself time to process, and then, like, you know, being just a critical thinker when you are reading things, being just like, and you're getting the information, don't take it at surface. Like, do your research, you know, ask the hard questions, you know, and then hold people accountable, you know. That's the best way, I think, because it's hard. Like, we can't stop the news alerts, and we can't stop the emails from coming in. It's not like we don't want to know, but you just have to have a different type of filter and I guess mindset as you're processing information. You want to think like, you know, how is this important to me?
Right.
And if it is important to me, why is it important to me? And if, now that I understand why it's important to me, what does that mean now moving forward? How does that change something, or does it not change something? And sometimes people want to make everything a thing, you know, and some things are just what it is. Right. You know, not everything has to be viral or popular, you know. It don't have to be all that. Some things can just be. You know? And I think we get in this world where everything has to have a title, a label, a space. And it's like, damn, like, why can't things just be what they are? You know? Why can't some things just be like, to be continued? Why does everything have to be like explained in the moment? Like, damn, can we get a minute, you know, to like make a decision or to reflect? So that's kind of where I am with that. I feel you on that, though, because there's a lot of overconsumption of information. Some of it is misinformation. And it's like, what's up? You're trying to figure out what's what. But maybe like find like your trusted sources too. And like your trusted like activists on Twitter, your trusted like folks that you go to, that you like look to for like direction in every space.
Who are some of your people?
The first person that comes to mind is Miley Till. She's like a superhero to me. I love following her. She's constantly giving just well-rounded information content, whether it's financial literacy or like ways to be like a bold Black woman and like unpack your trauma from life, or how to start a business, how to be professional. She's one of my favorite. Brittany Packett, she's a Black Lives Matter activist who has grown to do many, many great things. And I'm a huge fan of hers. She does a lot of commentary on her Twitter and Instagram on like what's happening in the news and the media, and she's always advocating for Black voices and Black communities, so I really appreciate her perspective. Elaine Welterworth, she is the former Teen Vogue editor-in-chief. She just recently announced that she's launching a book this spring, and I'm very excited to read it. But she does many speaking engagements, and like her Instagram story is just a day in the life of being like a bold, audacious Black woman. women is also very inspiring. Stacey Abrams, clearly, with her book, House Minority Leader, it's actually a workbook and a book at the same time, where you can like read it and then like do exercises to do the things that she did as she was navigating her career and her life. She gives you the exercises that she did at that time in life, so you can kind of learn to think how she
That's
thought.
dope.
Yeah, so her book is also really cool. So if you haven't read that, you guys should go check that out. But any really black woman that is out here killing it is who I'm following and who I'm submitting to, and like who I'm looking to for direction. Because for me, I'm finally understanding that navigating life as a black woman is difficult, and it needs to be done with grace and like discreetness. And I'm learning those things. I'm trying to exercise that. So I'm looking for that right now. But maybe in 10 years it'll be different.
Yeah. And honestly, as you were talking, I was just thinking about how one of the things I do constantly have to remind myself as we're experiencing all of this stuff is just giving black people the benefit of the doubt in these experiences. You know what I mean? These white people have had hundreds of years to formulate and bring all of these things together to get a role going. And I feel like sometimes when we're dealing with black people in any space, whether it's clothing or whatever, we give them one shot and it's like, oh man, his business is trash. But it's like, you went to this white establishment, they treated you like they didn't want you there, and you still go back. You know what I mean? So that's one of the things where even with Kamala and Corey, it's like, okay, I'm not about to act like these aren't things that sort of make me feel like, I don't know, but I am going to still tune in. I'm still going to follow and just make sure to give you that support.
I have not made any decisions on who I'll be supporting. I really honestly have no idea. I honestly can't even think about it right now. It's just too much. 2020 is just a headache right now for me.
Yeah.
But one thing I do not like is that Kamala, there's a lot of negative press and commentary around her race because of her former past as a prosecutor. And there's just other questionable things that come along whenever you're a black woman trying to do something. People just automatically want to, disqualify you or talk your accomplishments down.
Right.
And I definitely have a lot of criticism for Kamala and the choices and the things that she's done throughout her career. I do not agree with her on all the things. So I want to hear her out. I want to know. I have some questions for her. But I'm not gonna be like, Kamala is doing too much for running and she shouldn't run or whatever. And there's a lot of people saying that right now, and I just really don't like that, because you never want to shit on a black woman. Since when is that okay? Right. Like we created the fucking humanity that is in the earth right now. The audacity of you to disrespect me is beyond me, So Kamala is a black woman. She by default gets divine respect just simply by being a woman of color, you know? So to see other women of color, other people of color, just other people in general trying to destigmatize, try to stigmatize her with negative connotations, regardless of how true they may or may not be, it's just like, yo, what are we doing? So to your point, we do have to allow people grace, because I made many mistakes early in my career, and I'm still pretty early in my career. So I'm going to make a lot of mistakes, and I would hate for 30 years after I learn from those mistakes and overcome all those challenges, I'm finally at a place of where I can do something and be valuable. And now people are trying to tear me down from my past, but that was a part of my process. Those decisions needed to happen in order for me to be where I am now. So we just have to also think about that as we're talking about candidates and looking into people's histories. That is what got them to where they are. They had to make those mistakes and have those failures so that then now they can be in a position to where they know better. You know what I'm saying? Now they'll do better, or at least we hope. And that's what the campaign cycle will reveal to us.
So where do you feel like you fall in this space now after dealing with the Bernie campaign and the Stacey campaign, and just where you are in life? Because you're still just learning, and it's very open for all of us to experience. You know what I mean? I see your Instagram stories just like the other how many thousand people that follow you. Right? Yeah. But it's real though. But it's real in regards of how it's a real experience for a lot of people, and I feel like you can get so caught up in whatever the job responsibility is that you don't think of the mind's part in sustaining you as a person, and that in the same space. You know what I mean? Your mind and your job, they both are in that one thing. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So I was just curious, where do you feel like you're fitting in now, and how are you trying to navigate how you can better assist us, because you are one of the people that I would suggest, follow young Claudio, you know what I mean, and just see what's going on. So you're crazy. But you are crazy. And but in all seriousness, it's just like, where does that fall on you? You know what I mean?
I am recently deciding to step into my truth of being a storyteller and telling the story and owning the narrative and reclaiming the narrative. I am committing myself moving forward to advancing the culture and reshaping and reclaiming narratives. And I don't want to do anything that's not doing that. And that for me looks like social justice work. That looks like standing and supporting people who are also committed to that same purpose. That looks like me creating good quality content that gives people information and gives people power. You know, I just want to create at this point. I think for me, working in the political space is fun and has been very beneficial. And it's not that I ever want to leave. I don't ever want to go anywhere. I want to be all up in the political space. But I want to be in the political space in a way that allows me to serve my community. And as a Black woman, that's really, really, really difficult to do, because a lot of progressive organizations are led by white people who just don't get it. You know, they may be well-intended, but they just don't get it. So you are constantly having to like explain and like advocate, and like it's just like, that's not the space it's going to happen in. We have to create our own space to educate and inform and empower ourselves. And we can work in allyship with our partners and progressive partners and things like that. But ultimately, we are the only ones who are ever going to understand our experiences in this world. So now that has become my reality, I now am going to try my best to lean in with as much courage as I can, to believe in myself, to be someone who can contribute information to my community and report back to my community ways that we can be empowered. And when I say my community, I don't want people who are not Black and not female to be excluded from that, because I want people to know, like, my work is not just for Black people. Like, my work is for all people.
It's inclusive, for sure.
It's inclusive. Like, I don't want to, exile anyone out. So when I say culture and I say people, it's like everybody with a beating heart in the world. Even if you disagree with me and even if you don't like me, I'm fighting for you too.
Right.
And that's what I want to do more of. That's where I see myself in this space. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully I don't, go hungry and get, lose all my beautiful comfort that I built for myself. But I'm committed to that work 100%.
So to that point, I was just thinking the other day in regards of what you were talking about on your stories. Your stories is like a show, but
thank you.
It's hilarious. But in regards to, I remember you saying how you were dealing with anxiety.
Oh my God.
And how that was a really, really, really tough week.
I didn't even know anxiety was a thing. I thought it was like a made up mental illness. I didn't even know what anxiety were. I didn't want to cut you off, but
no.
My goodness.
No, because when you said it, I've never experienced an anxiety attack ever. So it's just one of those things where, not that I didn't believe it, but I was having a hard time trying to fathom what it means to experience something like that. And for crazy. You, it was like, from the outside looking in, from the things that you've worked on, I would assume that an anxiety attack may have come way earlier on. You know what I mean? Like, in the middle of this Stacey campaign, we're doing a runoff, we're fighting it. You know what I mean? It seems like those would be things that apply so much pressure. You know what I mean? But that's just not how the mind works. There could be so many other different triggers that cause that. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That just caught my attention. It was interesting just to see how that experience was. And now that you've come out of it, thankfully, I wasn't sure, like, what did you take from that? Like,
oh gosh, so much. I'll try to keep it short. I realized that I had experienced anxiety before, but I did not have the privilege to stay there. I had experienced it though. Like, I had been very panicked and very anxious, but it came out in other ways. Instead of me freaking out and being like, oh my gosh, I would make terrible choices. I would pick up toxic habits, and it would come out in a different way. I would express it in a different way. Anxiety is not this one like losing your shit episode. It's many different levels to it. It's not sleeping well. It's fidgeting. Grinding
your teeth and all of that type of shit.
All that kind of shit. Yeah. So like, I realized there were moments where I did, but there was a moment in that particular point, it was just, I was extremely overwhelmed. And I think because so often there is not much room for people like me to express myself. Mm-hmm. I am constantly masking myself. Mm-hmm. So that builds up a lot of pressure, and at some point it pops, and then such as anxiety.
Right.
There's no one thing I think that could trigger it, though for me I had like different things I was navigating, but ultimately for people who are just like listening and just curious, it's a for me I felt like it was more of like a bottling up of things I never got to express, because I couldn't. You can't cry at work when someone's mean to you. Mm-hmm. You can't, cry when you're walking down the street and someone calls you a nigger. Mm-hmm. You can't cry and hyperventilate at the club when a guy inappropriately grabs your booty. Mm-hmm. And these are my experiences are diverse and adverse. So I spent an entire lifetime of just pushing the fuck through. And at some point I just didn't have it in me anymore to push through. I had to feel that shit and like release it. And that is what my anxiety attack was about. It was a compilation of current and old and past situations that I had not had the opportunity to express and feel because I was surviving.
Right.
So what that feels like is like you literally, at least I felt extremely stuck. I felt I can't. That's the only word that I could think of. That could really, I just could not. I couldn't pick up the phone. I couldn't answer the text. I couldn't look at the television. I just was stuck in my mind. And it was just this like sunken place of like all the shit, And it was fucking weird because I am strong and I am resilient as fuck. And I'm magical. So for that to be my situation, for me to be in that space, I felt so much anxiety alone, just not being okay. Because most of us don't have the luxury to not be okay. Yeah. We don't have the privilege of staying home for a couple of days and not going outside of the door. So for me to like I felt the pressure of life. Like, bitch, you better get your shit together. You got bills due. You got shit to do. But I had to find some space to allow myself the grace to just to get through it, and to focus on my healing. And I think that like as people, we have to focus on our healing. We cannot run from our healing, because you'll get there. You'll have that moment where you think you're handling, you think you got it all figured out. You think, I'm strong. I've overcome all the things in life. And then one day you just wake up and you're like, fuck. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's going to happen several times. So to eliminate that, it's not like you can never have that. It's going to happen, just what it is. But you can limit how many times you get there by creating space for healing. So for me, moving forward, to stop myself from getting in a space of extreme anxiety, I'm creating moments of healing, practicing healing on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And that is what's helping me to like get my shit back together. Because Lord knows, only God was there.
And that includes like meditation. Like, what does that look like for you as far as working in daily?
For me, it looks like therapy. So I've been in therapy. I'm just gonna make sure I keep going. I had stopped being consistent with my therapy around the time that I had felt so much anxiety. I think that was a part of that contributed to it a lot, because I had lost my space of processing. Right. And then also for me, prayer and like my faith, like really spending more time with my Creator and like in my faith, like just spending more time in my spiritual realm. So I think for people who don't have faith, just whatever is your thing, like whatever your vibe, your energy is, your source, spend more time there, than anywhere else. Unplug and go to your source. Charge up a little bit. And then I think that also looks like taking care of myself. Oh my gosh. Taking care of myself by demanding more, by requiring more of myself, and making it less about how other people treat me and more about how I treat myself. That is real. That's real healing. Is it's like when you stop becoming the victim of how people are and what people have done to you and what people have said to you, you stop becoming a victim to that. And you now prioritize, how am I treating and loving myself? Mm-hmm. And then you realize, am I waking up on time every day to get to work on time? Am I eating enough a day? Am I keeping up with my hygiene? Are my teeth clean? When's the last time I've been to the dentist? How much money do I have in my 100%. Savings account? You know, and you start thinking, yo, like, I'm disrespecting myself. Mm-hmm. You know, so you know, but that's healing, you know, but like sometimes you get so comfortable playing the victim sometimes because life is just fucking hard. You know, it's so easy to become a victim. Especially as a black person. Especially as a marginalized person. So you just, that's my advice. It's just to like create the space to heal, create the space to like pivot a bit.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because that's one of those things where it's, for a long time, and I always say this, it's so hard sometimes to have these conversations because I feel like with social media, everything is always on it's in front of everybody. Mm-hmm. And it's like family business. So it's like we have to talk about family business amongst black people in front of all these other races. And on one hand, you're like, yo, I understand why you feel this way. I understand why it's hard. It is really hard, but you have to get over it. Yeah. And sometimes it's just like, I don't want these white people to see me telling you got to get over it. And then they follow up like, yeah, y'all should just get over it. It's like, yo, like, this isn't for you to say. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, for us, we have to get to a point where it's like, yo, it's justified. But you have to push through it and find a way.
You have to navigate it. You got to navigate. You got to be a hustler. You can't wait for nothing. Yeah. What you waiting for? Death? That's the only thing any of us should ever be waiting for, is our time to go home. Mm-hmm. Anything else is like, what you waiting for? You know, like, and I just think we have to develop like a sense of hustle. Mm-hmm. You know, as a culture, it's just like, why are we not hustling more? You know, and yes, we need to hold these white people accountable, or just these people. Mm-hmm. We need to hold we need to hold our oppressors accountable to do better. But you can do that and still win. Yeah. You can do that and still overcome and still be an advocate and still hold people accountable and still speak truth to power while still owning your shit and taking care of your shit. You don't have to say, you know, woe is me. Right. No. And I think we have to stop creating the woe is me mindset. Like, no, woe is not. You are empowered. You are a living, thinking, intelligent. I tell my little brother this all the time. My little brother's one of my favorite people. I tell him this all the time. And he's 18 and he's a young black man and he's figuring out who he is. So he's doubting himself a lot because he's coming into the terms of, I don't really know much about myself and I don't really know what I'm capable of doing because I haven't been exposed to many people that look like me doing many things. Right. So he's trying to figure out, what can I actually do well? And he's struggling with it. So whenever we talk about it, I'm like, dude, like, you can literally do anything. You can literally become the next president of the like Fortune 500 company. You become the next president of the world, of the USA. You know, you could do whatever you want because you are healthy. You are a thinker. You have a brain that works. You have eyes that see. You have a nose that smells. You are living. You have breath in your body, and nothing, no one else is doing or saying should ever dictate what you do and say about you. And I'm constantly driving that narrative to him. Like, you do not have to be your fears. You can be whatever. And that's something I think as a culture we have to begin to tell ourselves, is like, we don't have to be afraid to be in the boardroom or to be at the table. We got to leave that, you know, fuck that, you know, and start pursuing with audacity. I talked about some of my story the other day, actually, how white men have so much audacity. And we lack audacity because we're scared. And I just wish that we would get real bold on these motherfuckers and just really interrupt, disrupt, and like create some shit, you know, and like make people mad. Like, they think they mad. They have no idea. Because at the end of the day, they know that we can win and they know that we will win. Right. And they're mad about that, which is why all these oppressive tactics are being used. 100%. So we got to see past the bullshit. These tactics that are being used is just BS and distractions from stopping us from fully believing in ourselves and believing in each other. Because it's one thing to believe in yourself. It's a whole nother conversation. believing in each other. You made a comment earlier about the fact how we, black-owned businesses, shading black-owned businesses and stuff. How about the next time you get a bad service from a black-owned business, you sit down with them for coffee and help them grow? My brother, you were late. How can I help you be on time? I was late today.
Right.
What can we do, Ericka, to get you more punctual? How can we get you there? We need you to get there. There was a guy on a project I was working on, photographer, came to the project 2 hours late.
Jesus.
Had the audacity to want to charge the same invoice. No. No, I'm reclaiming my time. I'm reclaiming my time. But no, and and everyone was judging, and like, that's why I don't do black folks. I don't know.
Yeah, that bullshit.
And I was like, nah, that's not where it's at. It's about, I'm going to pick you up on my way here next time so we can cut here on time together. I'm going to hold you accountable. You're going to hold me up. I'm going to hold you up. And I feel like sometimes we don't do that. We don't do that enough.
To that point, and this is one of the things that I feel like is sometimes unseen and difficult in this space, because at the same time, and this is just one of the things that I look at in regards of how we're just progressing just as black people. Because on one hand, it's like, okay, a lot of stuff gets blamed on white people, 100%. And like I said, justifiable. Yep. It's 100% justifiable. However, I think it has to get to a point where while we at the very same time, while we have a conversation about working together with black people to help them improve, it gets to a point where you have to understand, like, some black people are on fuck shit. Period. Like, there is no desire to change. That's there true. Is no desire to integrate. There is no desire to work together. They're separate in their thinking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it makes it difficult, because it's like, at the same time, you can't. It's like if a mother or something has a husband or a brother who's abusive, like, or is a pedophile or whatever. Like, I can't love you so much that I'm going to allow you to stay in my house and run the risk of you touching one of my children or abusing. You know what I mean? So it's like, sometimes it's like, I just got to cut this off. That. It's not even worth it.
If it's going to cut off, then leave the negative at the door. Cut it off.
But I think also that's a way of it, because it still has to be addressed to a certain extent. It has to be addressed so everyone understands this is why. I wish I could have a sit down and conversation, but
they not my person.
That's just not able to happen. That person's just not open enough. And I think. Go ahead.
No, you finish.
No, I just think it's one of those things where you just come to an understanding, and it's like, I think, like I said, black people working together is an area that for sure needs to be improved in.
For sure.
But looking forward 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years, when I hope black people catch up, are in just as many positions of power as white people.
Yeah.
It's going to get to a point where we look at everyone and it's like, there's evil black people just like there's evil white people. Like, you have to protect yourself against people out there just really
people.
100%.
People out there just really ain't shit. They got the devil in them.
100%.
And they out here doing the devil's work, and they need to go straight to hell. And that is that, right? And some of them look white, some of them look black, some of them look purple, some of them look blue.
100%.
But they there. And I think that the only way that you find out whether or not they're gonna be shit or not is if you make the effort in the first place.
100%. I 100% agree. I 100% agree.
But then once you know, then you can't be out here trying to turn atheists into believers if they're content with being in their lane.
Energy.
Yeah, it's wasted energy. At that point, you just begin to embrace your brother and see your differences as something that is just simply different and nothing that is negative. Because a lot of the times we're thinking like, if someone's different from us, it's a negative thing.
Sometimes it is though.
But most times it's not. Most times it's a difference of opinion.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes it's just a matter of the intensity towards the
intent behind the belief system. Like, why do you feel this way? You know, and we. But some people are just bad people. I'm a pretty optimistic person, clearly, so sure. I'm just like, everyone's great. We can do this. Let's do it. But
that's the side of, I think that's one of the things it goes back to, because in life, sometimes you have to make those hard decisions, and and I think if you're not one of those people, you at least have to have someone in your circle who's able to be like, you know what, like, they have to be left.
Yeah.
Or we have to.
You got to move
because
on.
At the same time, us having you being as optimistic as you are will get us through a lot of moments, for sure. But sometimes you got to have the person that's like, this just not gonna work. Like,
Right.
let's put that energy somewhere else, and we'll be better for it. You know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of times it's people who don't, especially Black people, we're so used to
nurturing and
including
saving.
and trying our best to our death to figure it out. And it's like, how many people have been abused or dealt with so much stuff because you tried to force something in that shouldn't have been there. Yeah,
I think as a community, we need to enforce more boundaries.
Yeah, 100%.
I didn't even know you could have personal boundaries until I started therapy. But yeah,
go into that. Personal. What does that look like? You explain it.
It's just, I don't know. Like, personal boundaries, like, what are my triggers? What upsets me, and how do I protect that energy? Like. What makes me happy, and how do I do more of that and invite more of that? And like, how do I make sure that I'm not being taken advantage of, and that I am respecting myself, and that looks different for everybody, but I didn't know that was an option. Honestly, I thought I had to make myself available to everybody.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't know. No one taught me boundaries. No one taught me boundaries, and as a culture, I think, we are pretty fluid as a culture, so we don't really have any boundaries either, but we're not also as organized as we should be as a culture at this point. Like, we were, and then we stopped being organized. I just wish we can just, like, bring back Huey Newton and, like, do the Black Panther shit again, because that was lit. Like, show up to motherfuckers' courthouses with guns and, like, stand on the court steps saying, I wish you would, know.
Honestly, I think, and sometimes two things. One, I feel like when I think back to, I was watching an interview with Killer Mike, and he was saying how even though things were segregated, that is one of the times where the Black community was thriving the most, because we had a system, we understood each other.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things where I feel like possibly the reason why everything was so derailed is because we were pressed on including ourselves in things that we weren't necessarily, well, it wasn't even necessarily that we weren't wanted in. And just the feeling of not being wanted made us want to be involved. Absolutely. And I think us trying to get involved in that space just derailed all of our
That's why I said we got our priorities fucked
organization. Up. Yeah, and I think it goes to that boundaries thing. It's like, I'm not just going to try to go over there just because I can't go there. If there's a store that has clothes that I don't even wear, I'm going to go in there because it says no Black people allowed. I don't wear those clothes anyway. Like, I'm not going to try to go there just because y'all don't want me in here.
Right.
And I think that's one of those things that is just like, it's one of the steps as we continue to progress.
Like
it's
Kanye says, the good old gospel, we all self-conscious. I'm just the first to admit it. Like, listen, can we just have a moment for the Negro gospel that is All Falls Down? And every word in that song, because that truly is the Black experience. Truly, because we feel like we have to overcompensate for the lack, and that part of integration is a part of that. It's like, I lacked all the access, so now I want all the access. I lacked all the equal opportunity, so now I want all the equal opportunity. And yes, want those things, pursue those things, but don't forget where you came from. And I think for as a culture, we forget where we came from. We forget where we came from, and we lose sight of the foundation. It just bothers me. Yeah. Because it's like, and I can appreciate people like the Jay-Z's who try to get us back focused on equity and wealth and credit. You know what's better than going to strip club? Credit. I was like, oh, yo, when I heard that, I was like, oh, whoa, okay, he touching, he preaching. 100%. So it's like, you can appreciate those like leaders in the culture who like shift things and like refocus things, but like, how many people fix their credit after he made that song? Probably not many people, because niggas out here okay with just having Walmart debit cards and shit, getting prepaid phones, never, I haven't left the country, so I can't talk about not leaving the country, but not traveling, So I guess all that comes from the sense of like really wanting to overcompensate for the materialistic things and not really grounding or rooting things in community.
No, for real, 100%.
Because we want if we want to have community, we got to stay in community. Yeah, we can't like abandon, because it's not about assimilation as much as it is equal. Right, human rights, like having just basic human rights, fundamental things that we deserve as Americans and as people in this world. You can have that and still have a sense of community. You don't have to sacrifice community to have equal opportunity. We can have both. How do we get there? I don't know. but hopefully we just keep having these conversations and everyone keeps asking the questions and suggesting things, and one day we get there.
Yeah. I think part of it is coming to terms with the fact that it's going to take time, and time is it's going to take a long time,
and investment and resources.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, come on now. Like, I used to go to after school programs. Did you go to after school programs? My little brother didn't do that. The community is shrinking. We gotta like reinvest. Okay, we gotta, yes, time, but also effort. You know, we gotta make this shit work. And right now it's not working. So we gotta get back to helping people raise the village, raising the children, right? We got to get into the single parent if your neighbor is a single mom of 3 and you know she's working 2 jobs, bring her something. Knock on her door. Do you need anything? You want to watch the kids so you could just have a minute? You know, we don't do that anymore that I can see. I got many issues. I got a lot of shit. I don't feel like I can talk to anybody about it because we got into this culture of like, we just want to put on this front that we okay, that we good. This lacking of vulnerability, like it's a weakness, like it's a plague. So when I struggle in silence because I don't know that there's a community out there that's willing to jump in and help me. But if more of us were to speak up about our struggles and more of us were to be honest with ourselves about what we need, you know, not even fuck the community as an individual, as an entity. What do you need as an entity to become the best version of yourself? And are we even empowering ourselves before we even expect it from the community? Are we even practicing that individually? Are we practicing community as an individual? Like, am I leaning into community and am I contributing to a community? What is the kind of energy I'm creating? Who is my community? Do I even have a community? Like, these are the questions that we should be asking. And I just think that many of us suffer in silence when we don't have to, because we do have people out there that would step in and help, but we don't have that space to like, for us to see each other. Sometimes you don't even got to say it. You know when somebody's down and out. Yeah. But because we're so behind our phones and we don't have any like interaction with each other anymore, we don't know.
Yeah, and to that point, that's one of those things. I was having a conversation a couple weeks ago, and that's the problem that I have with everyone who, not a problem as if like an intense issue, but that's one of the problems with I don't want no negativity. You know what I mean? It's just like there's a lot of negative shit going on. There's a lot of fucked up shit going on that people need to express to get over it. So it's almost like, I feel like it goes back to the fact of everything needing to be so left or so right. And also the fact of people not having boundaries. It's almost like, okay, y'all haven't had boundaries for so long that you don't understand how sometimes you do need to let the negativity in to resolve it. It's just, you've always let it in.
Creating the space to heal.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, creating the space to heal. Yeah. Creating the opportunity to express without shame.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, and this is one of the things that Groove would always tell me. He'd be like, yo, like, if someone's calling you from a number you don't know,
pick up the phone.
Pick up the phone, but at the same time, understand that you don't know what's on the other end of that phone. Like, you don't know what energy you're about to introduce. It's not like people can't hear a few words and it changed their whole day.
Really,
it's like, yo, if I'm in a space right now and I don't know if I can I'm about to do a talk, I can't hear that somebody died or whatever. This can wait. Leave a voicemail. You know what I mean? And then sometimes it's like, yo,
I'll call you back.
I'm with some shit. I'll pick up the phone randomly.
Yeah.
But it's making the conscious decision and not just be like, oh man, someone's calling me. I gotta pick up. Yeah, 100%.
Self-aware, and that takes time. Becoming aware of self takes time. Man, I remember last year sometime I realized I was not who I thought I was. I thought I was. Listen. You couldn't tell me I wasn't that bitch, okay? I grew up on Beyonce. I was Beyonce, you know, next. I was like Beyonce Generation Z, okay? Like, you couldn't tell me I wasn't that bitch. But then when I started to face my truth and be like, and like really become more self-aware, start going to therapy, start creating space to heal, start confronting my demons, I was not that bitch, okay? I was basic. I was broken. And I needed fixing. And that was really tough to like, you know, embrace, you know, but more importantly, that's what taught me I did need to practice boundaries. that's why I felt so heavy. You know, I did need to create the space for healing. I did need to do these things. And that moment creates that space of like what you're saying, but you got to get there first. You cannot have that moment on your high horse. You gotta
100%.
You gotta knock your shit down a couple of notches and then have that moment and then turn it back up again. You gotta take that hiatus off of social media. You gotta do it off of the gram for a second. You know, move in silence for a second and then come back to the boss shit. So this is me I'm trying to get back on my boss shit. I'm like really trying to reintroduce myself. My name is Hove type of vibes. I'm so lame.
Right. No, you good.
But
I feel it.
You understand what I'm saying? Like I'm ready to, because now I'm more self-aware. I want to practice boundaries. I want to say, I don't know, I don't give a fuck what I used to do. This is what I'm doing now. You're like, I want to enforce that now.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and it feels good to through those lessons. Liberating. It feels good to, and
come
you
out
see
on the other side. Yes.
And the people who are supposed to be there will learn to respect it, and it will in turn inspire them to do the same.
Yeah,
and you can recognize it and be like, oh, this is you setting a boundary.
It becomes a contagious energy.
That's how you curate the better relationships. But I feel like we've not been doing it for so long. I feel like this initial part of it is going to be rough because people are so used to just having access, and it's like, that's
why I appreciate intentional, meaningful conversations like this one we're having now. So shout out to you for doing this work. Shout out to the Revolt family for doing the State of the Union that they do, the State of the Culture, I think it's called.
State of the Culture,
that they do, and like all these different like title for different events that they host and like concerts that they do. Just like all the different great things that the spaces that folks are creating. Like I think that's the beginning of of the Renaissance. A friend of mine, not a friend, really an associate. His name is Devin. I'm not gonna put his full government out there because I don't know him like that. But he used to work at Revolt, and he kind of helped coin the idea of the Black Renaissance. And I learned that just from watching his stories, you know, and he just kind of shared how it kind of developed. And now Diddy, like, it was something that he kind of floated around at his at the time when he was there, and then fast forward, Diddy's using that word, and now it's like they want to do all this work around the Black Renaissance. But I really do feel like they're beyond just that. He's not the person to think that. He's not the only person to think that. But it's like this energy, like you said, it's becoming contagious. You got Tracee Ellis Ross. You got just like all these unapologetic, like, I just don't give a fuck anymore people who are just like, listen, you don't own me. That's like creating this sense of renaissance of like, the fact that we're even having conversations about healing right now as a community is like, have we even ever had conversations about healing as a community? Like
you said, it's the privilege. It's the
privilege to heal. Absolutely. Because to heal means that you're no longer trying to survive, you know, because that means you have reached the optimal point of surviving. So now you can like heal, you can chill. But honestly though, so many of our people aren't even there yet. And I'm talking not just America, I'm talking about the world. Talk about my brothers and sisters in Asia, you know, down in Indonesia, India. I'm talking about my brothers and sisters in Europe, you know, in Palestine, you know, in Central America, Venezuela. Shit's fucked up. Yeah. Shit's fucked up. So like, it's going, like you said, it's a time. It's going to take some time. But I think you never know how contagious the energy is. So I think we should always never stop putting it out there. When the year was ending last year, I emailed and hit up a lot of my friends because I felt really like less than, you know, and because I was obviously going through my own shit, but I wanted to be a better server to my community, to my tribe, because I felt like so much of me needed them a lot that year because I was just going through and reacting and finding my strength, healing. I was going through my healing process. So as I was coming out of that, I was just kind of like, you know, I texted everybody. I said, how can I better serve you in 2019? Like, what are some things I can do next year that better serves you and like your goals, what you need? And some people were like, I don't really need you to serve me. I just need you to be the best version of yourself, because they knew that I wasn't really in a position to pour out yet. But then others were like, you know what? I think we should spend more time together. I would really appreciate that. So maybe asking that question to your people that you want to be better with is like, yo, like, how can I better serve you? Like, Mom, how can I better serve you? Is there anything you need from me that I'm not giving you? And like creating the space to have those conversations and to receive that feedback. Because some people are not receptive to, to feedback.
Yeah, true enough. I think, it's interesting because that is, as a man, you do notice it. And as myself, someone who personally tries to be as progressive as possible in conforming to what makes sense what makes sense to conform to, you know what I mean? And even still, there's still stuff that I'm not gonna up and be like, yeah, I'm just open and ready and willing to do anything. Sometimes it's like, yo, I really don't want to do this, but because I understand the greater good in the situation at hand, or how this will probably just make my life easier in the long run, I will submit to the terms. That's because true. I'd rather not deal with the other side of what happens if I don't. Coming to terms with that in and of itself
is an accomplishment.
It will make life so much simpler.
Yes, it's an important lesson every person should learn, not even just men, but just people in general.
And dealing with the opposite sex and the same. Just same friends, sex, just anything.
It's
just,
neighbors, politicians, Donald Trump, all that. Like,
and I think to that point, I think that's one of the things where, that's one of the reasons why we get somebody like Donald Trump. It's
to
like,
provoke that.
Yo,
shake things up.
Y'all were mad about all of this stuff with Hillary, but it's like y'all don't even know how to choose the lesser of two evils. Like, I would still much rather deal with that than someone who's locking kids up and taking them away from their families and have people getting beat up. You know what I mean? It's just like.
So here's a question I have for you, because you said you have the Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. You're rather the Hillary Clinton. I voted for Hillary Clinton. I obviously had my disagreements with her early on in the presidential cycle, but I supported her. But she is the kind of, because I understand politicians, not all like Democrats are for the people, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying that she's not, but she's had a pattern of decisions and choices that has given us reasonable doubt. Let's put it that way.
100%.
So in my opinion, I would call that someone, but like she did it with like the wool over her eyes. We didn't even know she did it until like woke as fuck people started telling us that she did it. So would you rather have a wolf in sheep's clothing or a wolf? Because with Donald Trump, at least we know what we're going to get. But with other people, they can dress it up with a bow tie and tell you that the car has 0 miles, and really it's a dead car.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I feel like that analogy still makes this situation black and white when it's not.
It's not. I'm not speaking in the sense of Hillary and Donald.
And Trump.
I'm speaking of a sense of, how do you want your drink served? Do you want it served with?
I feel like if it's a wolf, I feel like.
Like, would you prefer?
I feel like a wolf is never so well cloaked in sheep's clothing that you can't tell it's a wolf.
Oh.
It would have to be like a sheep looks like a sheep. But I would at least be like, yo, something looks odd about this.
Well, it would take shit to go down. So you put yourself,
which it has.
Right, but it would take shit to go down for you to get to that point of realization. But at that point, you put yourself in a position to be compromised because there was a chance that it could be something that it wasn't. Whereas you had an option to get it straight up. So it's like, do you want a mixed drink or do you want a shot? Is really what I'm asking. It's like, do you want it watered down and want to find out what the flavors are and how strong it is later? Or do you want it straight up?
To that point, honestly, I feel like it comes down to, and it speaks to the importance of having experienced people in the space. Because even if we're talking about, and it's getting technical, but these are the examples that we have. It's like, even in dealing with it, I know a mixed drink that is watered down versus a mixed drink that's strong as hell. It's like, oh, this has way more liquor than it has juice.
But you got to drink it first.
But you do. But at the same time, if experience would say, yo, don't throw this drink back. Experience would say, all right, I'm going to sip it. I'm going to feel it out. I'm going to act accordingly.
That's
so I think,
true.
And it goes back to what we was talking about before. Where it's
boundaries.
Exactly. It's going so far left, so far right. It's like, yo, we don't have to. And the same thing with Corey and Kamala. It's like, yo, I don't have to see one interview and write you off. But I'm going to feel it out. It's like you said, these things happen in phases. So if I'm taking it one step at a time, it's like, all right, I know you did. I didn't necessarily like this, but you might come after and do something else where I'm like, okay, I am for this. I'm feeling this. Absolutely. And you find the balance from everything. But I feel like so many people are like, oh, that one interview, I wasn't fucking with it. I'm good on that. I'm done with you. Exactly.
This was a good conversation.
I appreciate you, young Claudio.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks for creating this space. That's gonna be my rap name. Yeah,
Claudio, aka
I feel like I just feel like a champion. Young Claudio makes me feel like I'm a winner, like champion of the world.
You are a winner. You are crazy as hell.
I am. I got a lot of energy. Okay, I got that.
I feel you.
I'm a fire sign. Come with all of that heat. What's your sign?
I'm a Pisces.
Both of you guys are Pisces?
Yeah.
Whoa, intense.
Yeah.
Intense energies. So your birthday is
the 22nd.
Next week?
Yeah.
His birthday's
I believe
next
it's
week.
next week.
Both of y'all birthdays next week. Okay.
Yeah.
Wednesday and Friday, come hang out.
Okay, I'm coming through. But yeah, man, this is a good talk, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to share some of what's inside of me.
For sure. What's your Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff? You don't have a Twitter, do you?
I do, but you know what? I'm gonna start using it because I realized that for my rants, they probably would do better on Twitter.
On Twitter.
Yeah. So I'm gonna start doing that there.
Okay.
So you can follow me at I'm just kidding. You can follow me at Claudio Ericka with the CK. Yeah.
It's Claudio Ericka on both.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice. In 2019, if you're creating an Instagram and Twitter and it's not the same, like that makes no sense.
Yeah,
like you're making things much harder for
really
yourself.
Making it hard for people to find you.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can check me out on there. And we can talk about this more.
For sure. I thank you so much for chopping it
Thank
up
you
with
for
me
having me.
Time.
This is so cool. Remember I told you, how much this means to me? This means the world.
I remember.
I feel like I'm winning an Oscar.
This is an Oscar.
And
we have to create new spaces and get you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, goddamn.
Look, like I said, niggas know they work.
For real.
Now listen. I'm telling you.
Yo, that is hilarious.
No, all them, because listen, I'm telling you, like I for so long did not know my worth, and I'm still discovering my worth. But the men that I've dated throughout my life,
they knew it.
They knew their worth. So when they said they were done, they were done. I played the game of like, I'm done. Wait, why don't you want me back? Why you not fighting for me? What you mean, baby? We're playing those games of trying to get like attention and over respect, seeking attention or respect. But man, all the men I've dated, not all of them, some of the men I've dated truly know they worth. And it's like the way, not even in the way that they exited, but also in the way they operated, in the sense of like, they knew what they wanted. Where they knew they wanted to go eat. Okay, they knew what they wanted to wear in the morning. Like, how is this so simple for you? It's always like but they were not looking for anything. They weren't seeking anything. Whereas, like, I think myself at that time, I would dress up for the sake of being cute and being seen as cute versus dressing for myself. So now I get dressed like crap faster and I can move a little bit faster.
And you look fly, bro.
Because I am fly.
Yeah.
Because I know my worth now.
Flex.
I'm learning that. But back then, no one told me I was fly. So I had to like be extra.
But you still appreciate being told you're fly.
I do appreciate being told I'm fly. So thank you.
But you have the self.
I have the self-awareness where I don't need to be told. But it's always, everyone appreciates a good compliment.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's the PSS is like, these niggas out here know they worth. So bitches and ladies and everyone in between, get to know yours too, because y'all see, look, you was like, this is an Oscar. See how easy that was for you to just say? How many, like, I've been on a couple people podcasts, but they're by women and they never would have responded like that. So
let's start responding like that, man.
Let's start responding like this is. I am the prize. I am the $1 million ticket. That's right.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Follow Young Claudio on Instagram and Twitter. She has amazing breakdowns of everything that's going on in the world and in her life.
I'm turning that up a notch. I'm turning that up. Yeah, I'm turning that up like 25 notches. Next week,
that means you're gonna turn it up by like 50.
Yeah, because I'm already extra.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna throw it out there like for real. and I hope people like it. So fuck with it. Yeah, fuck with it.
This year is going to be very expansive.
You know I got it.
Facts, big facts. You are nuts. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.